Okay, so for this last video, I want to introduce some drivers of organizational complexity. And so we're talking about, in the context of patch dynamics, we're talking about, what's the complexity of the makeup of these patches and how are these patterns um, organized over space, what's driving some of that complexity and what's driving those patterns that we see. There's a few different directions and types of drivers, types of influences of change that we can see in urban systems. And so some of those is top down, or one of those is top down versus bottom up. And what this means is like, is it individuals on the ground, metaphorically on the ground, individuals and individuals' actions that are driving changes towards the top, or is it institutions, governments, and large-scale institutions that are creating the driving the organization of patch dynamics in urban systems towards the bottom? And obviously both of these are going to be happening at the same time, but what you want to know is one having more of an influence, or what is the specific influence that each one of these is having at a given time is important when you're trying to understand how urban systems are organized. Another one is inside control versus outside influence. Maybe you have neighborhoods that are composed of a certain type of demographic, and you have people who are moving to that neighborhood that have different cultures and different religions and different customs and engage in different types of activities. And that's just one example, but do you have is the inside control going to be people resisting that type of merging, or is the outside influence going to move into that neighborhood and sort of dispersing their own cultures and stuff? And so you have these sort of dynamics going on, and it could be something unrelated to neighborhoods, it could be something else, but inside control where the inside group is resisting change from the outside, or are they not resisting? Do you have outside influence that's sort of penetrating the inside group and starting to have some influence over some what's going on inside groups? It's a bit ambiguous, but there's different types of outside versus inside influence. And then you can have individual versus collective action. And what this is getting at is it the individual actions of literally individual people, or do you have groups that are getting together and doing some sort of collective action? So you might have some community group that organizes and around some specific issue, and they want to, a good example, since we're talking about urban forestry, is maybe you have a community group that's literally dedicated towards dedicated towards tree planting. And so you have this community group that their collective action is to plant more trees, and so they're having this influence across the city, versus just individuals who are deciding to plant the tree in their backyard. And obviously both of these are happening, but the extent to which each one is happening would differ and has different consequences for what happens across the city in a spatial scale. So those are the three. There's top down versus bottom up. There's inside versus outside influence, and then there's individual action and collective action. But recently, there was this really good paper that was released or published, like literally within the past couple of weeks, which sort of takes in some of these ideas that we've been talking about as far as spatial heterogeneity and patch dynamics, and trying to understand the drivers of complexity and evolutionary change in an urban setting, and applies some other sorts of, so there's resource distributions, and there's landscape heterogeneity and biological community diversity. We sort of talked about these three components. They're introducing this residential segregation idea that we're going to start talking a little bit more about, when we get into redlining and things like that. But these sorts of sort of resource distributions and segregation and institutional racism actually influences the ecological settings and ecological trajectories of some communities in urban settings. So it's a really cool paper. I've been meaning to read it, and so we're all we're all going to read it together. And sort of it should reinforce some of the ideas that we talked about and add some ideas to this. So that's the reading for this section. And so if you continue on, there will be that paper. And this is the final video of this module. So as always, keep working your way through that module, and I will see you in the next video in the next module.